Hi, I'm Erica Larson discussing legal aspects of teacher evaluation. Specifically, the Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA, provides key provisions and also discusses bargaining and advocacy. The key provisions to ESSA, it prohibits the Secretary of Education from dictating state educational systems, including teacher evaluation. States develop their own short and long-term goals, and states also measure goal performance using multiple measures in addition to student performance. It's considered rights preserving as opposed to rights creating. It doesn't interfere with rights provided under state laws. Local education agencies meaningfully consult with or allow input from key stakeholders. So this could be parents, teachers, paraprofessionals, other specialized instructional support staff regarding activities that utilize grant funds. And so this would include teacher evaluation. And this is even in states that do not have bargaining. This helps facilitate teacher buy-in. Also, evaluations must provide feedback that translates into action. And according to ESSA and research underlying ESSA recommendations, student test scores are increasingly shown to not be a good reflection of teacher effectiveness. Regarding bargaining and advocacy under ESSA, adequate funding, development, and validation of high-stakes teacher evaluation systems are required. Before they are used to make high-stakes employment decisions, new evaluation systems must be piloted, and teachers also must be trained in these new systems. Negotiation should be used to change evaluation systems, and this is where permitted by law in this situation, and in the situation of unintended consequences. So when evaluation systems change as the result of unintended consequences, negotiation should be used if allowed. When developing an evaluation plan, due process rights must be considered, and the plan must be consistent with the existing due process rights. Also, ESSA recommends to check individual state laws since, as stated earlier, ESSA does not interfere with state and local law. So, on that note, I checked Kansas-specific requirements, and the information that I'm presenting at this point is from the Kansas Teacher Evaluation Systems Handbook, available on ksde.org. According to this handbook, evaluations can be powerful interventions. High-quality, thoughtful evaluation carries the potential to improve schooling, including it can contribute to student achievement. The Kansas Educator Evaluation Guidelines are flexible. They facilitate improvement of existing district systems. Districts may utilize their own evaluation instruments that meet 6 specified criteria which follow, or they may use KEEP, the Kansas Educators Evaluation Protocol provided by KSDE. Districts must meet a peer-reviewed process to be in state compliance. So if they use their own system, they must meet state criteria and they must follow this process for it to be approved. Kansas-specific requirements, more information about them. They were prompted by the requirements of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, or ESEA, Flexible Waiver Request. KSDE, in collaboration with Kansas education communities, created the Kansas Educator Evaluation Protocol, KEEP. And these were released prior to ESSA, though it is generally consistent with ESSA requirements, as you'll see. The Kansas Educator Evaluation Systems are robust. This means that they must include multiple observations. More are recommended whenever teachers are struggling. Also, multiple types of evidence must be included in teacher evaluations. So, as stated, multiple direct observations. Valid and reliable student achievement must be included, and artifacts that reflect student achievement must also be included in this evaluation process. Decisions must be evidence-based. The evaluation systems must be transparent, and this is characterized by continuously collaborating for improvement in educators in their teaching and then ultimately in learning. Evaluation systems must also be equitable. So this means that all educators, whether teachers, building level administrators, district level administrators, they must all have access to the same quality professional development. And this can be job-embedded professional development. It can be resources such as mentors, teacher leaders, supervisors who can provide, as the handbook states, appropriate feedback regarding student learning and subsequently adjusting their instruction or their performance on their specific job. So the 6 required criteria, and I'll go through these in more depth. Here's just kind of a list. So the districts must show how their system fulfills these criteria, how their evaluation system prompts continual improvement, how it differentiates performance in a meaningful way, how it is based on multiple valid measures, how it evaluates educators on a regular basis, provides useful feedback, and is used to inform personnel decisions. All these things must be part of Kansas evaluation systems that are approved by the state. So these criteria broken down, continual improvement. The KSDE mission statement says that evaluation systems should do more than just satisfy legal requirements. They should also facilitate improved learning and instruction. And the evaluation system must be supported by varied and comprehensive research. And the handbook provides guidance as to specific types of research that might be considered. As far as if it meaningfully differentiates performance, KSDE recommends 4 descriptors to avoid rating in the middle, and the KEEP descriptors, so the Kansas Educators Evaluation Protocol descriptors, are highly effective, effective, developing, and ineffective. And I've also stated on this slide how that is broken down. Based on multiple valid measures, this is the 3rd criteria. Per KSDE, student growth should be a significant factor. So if we look back at ESSA, it said the student achievement should not be, or the research is continuously showing that student achievement is not a good reflection of teacher effectiveness. Kansas says we should look at student growth, should be a significant factor in teacher evaluations. Criteria 4, educators should be evaluated on a regular basis. So years 1 and 2 of their job, they should be evaluated by the 60th day of each semester. So each semester they need to be evaluated. Years 3 and 4, they need to be evaluated each year by February 15th. And then after that, they need to be evaluated once every 3 years. And that evaluation must occur prior to February 15th during their evaluation year. The evaluation criteria 5 needs to provide useful feedback. So for it to be useful, it needs to be timely, it needs to be clear, it needs to include strengths and areas of needed growth, and it needs to link those areas of needed growth to relevant professional development, and it needs to be useful. So the skills need to actually be able to improve their skills in the areas of need through these related professional development opportunities. And as stated earlier, they need to have that equitable access to professional development. That could be talking with a mentor or a supervisor or on-the-job type experiences to help them. Criteria number 6. The evaluation is used for personnel decisions. So this could be continued employment, whether retaining the employee in their current job or promoting them to a different job. The employment decisions also include compensation for their jobs and rewards. So to learn more, I've included this link, and there is specific information in text, forms, tables, flow charts for teachers, building level leaders, and district level leaders. It goes into a lot of depth. Some of it's more regularly updated than in the core manual, and it can all be found on this website. So it's a good resource. As far as my district, we use the Danielson method for teacher evaluation. If a teacher feels their evaluation is inaccurate, they can appeal it. If a teacher feels they were unjustly terminated, they can appeal it, and potentially they can get a hearing in front of the board. Cite a legal case. So I found a legal case. It actually happened in Valley Center Public Schools, that's near Wichita, so not too far away from home for me, a couple hours, and a gifted facilitator sued the district on the basis of breach of contract. She was non-renewed without due process. She had been a gifted teacher in the decade for about, I think, 13 years. It had been over a decade. And she claimed that because she had tenure with the district before tenure laws changed, that she should have been given due process. KNEA stated that she had been on an improvement plan, but the requirements of her improvement plan were too rigorous, and she wasn't given sufficient time to actually demonstrate realistic improvement. She hadn't been given adequate opportunity. The district didn't comment in the sources that I found, except just to say that the board was that the district was no longer under litigation. There were 2 articles I found on this, and in the first one, the board said that they hadn't had sufficient time to comment, so I guess they also commented that. The case was ultimately dismissed, and it was dismissed on the basis of an earlier Kansas Supreme Court case. In the earlier case, KNEA challenged the law removing tenure rights for teachers on the basis of the Kansas Constitution's one subject rule. The state's most bills should contain only one subject. This case was dismissed, so whenever Decker's case came along regarding tenure rights, it was also dismissed on this earlier precedence. So as a school leader, how would I ensure that I was following the legal requirements associated with the evaluation process? In addition to stated requirements, as difficult as it can be during busy schedules, I would make a point to store notes in each employee's file regarding observations and interactions with them that are especially noteworthy, whether positive or problematic. This would provide documentation of multiple observations, in addition to those occurring in the formal evaluation process. I would communicate regularly with employees, making a point to touch base with them more frequently than required. I would note these again in employees' files. The purpose of this communication would be to provide the employee support in a proactive manner. So I would probably figure out a system where for new employees, for example, I would maybe touch base, and it would depend on the employee and probably be more frequent earlier on in the year, and then depending on how comfortable they're feeling and how effective they are being. It might be, again, I know some of this might be really unrealistic, but just for example, I might aim to check in with each new employee once a week to start off with, and then maybe once the school year is underway and they're feeling more comfortable, maybe every other week, down to maybe every month. I would just kind of figure out what seems to be effective for each employee groups and individual employees. Obviously, it would be groups first, as kind of a basis, and then adjust for individual employees. And then as I figured out what seemed to work the best, then I would go from there. But I'd rather communicate more and make them feel more comfortable at worst, hopefully, if I'm doing it effectively, than communicate less and miss being able to help them. I think that the Kansas requirements are pretty in-depth, and they do require a lot of different evidence that is varied. And so I think there would be a lot already in the teacher file, but these additional ideas of mine would help me to develop meaningful relationships with employees to help be able to influence them in, like I said, proactive, but a meaningful manner as well, and would go above and beyond those requirements.